Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. My guest today is the Ukrainian journalist and activist Mustafa Nayyem, or perhaps really I should say my host, because we're doing this interview in the studios of the online TV channel of which he is a co-founder, Hromadske TV, which started broadcasting ahead of schedule when protests against the government erupted in Ukraine last November, and very quickly became one of the go-to news sources for coverage of those protests. But Mustafa is perhaps better known as the man whose Facebook post started the whole thing off. This was back on the 21st of November. Ukraine's government, to widespread surprise, announced that it would not, after all, be signing a planned association agreement with the European Union. This went against what President Viktor Yanukovych had been saying he would do since he was elected in 2010, and according to opinion polls, it went against the wishes of the majority of the Ukrainian people. And so Mustafa posted on Facebook, guys, are you willing to go down into the street and protest about this? Sure enough, a few hours later, 1,000 people gathered on Independence Square in central Kiev. The following day, there were a few more. The following day, the 23rd of November, there were a few more. And then on the 24th of November, there was the first mass demonstration, bringing nearly 50,000 people to the streets of Kiev to protest and to demand that Viktor Yanukovych sign this agreement. But he didn't. He went to the summit in Vilnius and didn't sign the document, and a week later, the demands of the protesters had moved on. They were now demanding for his resignation. What ensued has been the biggest wave of protests in Ukraine since the Orange Revolution in 2004, with hundreds of thousands of people taking to the streets at the peak times on Sundays. Mustafa, how do you feel nearly 8 weeks later about what you started? How's it gone?
Actually, I don't feel that I've started something, because it was not fair to say that I started something. It just was this movement. It was planned by society. It was planned by opposition parties. So it just was my maybe post that provoked first people to go outside. But it was not something that I launched or planned or to do something. It was occasion. I think for all people who are now staying in the Maidan during these 2 months, changed everything. I mean, even in personal life, in society, and what's going on in Maidan. Because 2 months ago, if you would say someone that we will have demonstration with which will gather hundreds of thousands, no one will believe you.
Yes, you said that you spoke, I think, on the 21st of November to Arseniy Yatsenyuk, who's currently the leader of Yulia Tymoshenko's party while she's in prison, and he said to you, no one will take this.
Yeah, it was evening of this day when Azarov told that they were stopped, interrupt this preparing, Prime Minister of Ukraine, that they interrupt this preparing for signing of this agreement. And in that day, we asked Yatsenyuk why he's not asking people go outside. And he was right saying that, I don't believe. And because he had negative experience. And that's why I think that it's very, very good that not politicians started that process, but civil society. I think that Yatsenyuk was not wrong. He was right as a politician. If Yatsenyuk were asked people to go outside that day, I don't believe that they will go outside, because people doesn't believe in politicians. So when they saw that it was not politician protest, but people who never was involved in politician life, they went outside.
But now Arseniy Yatsenyuk, along with Vitaly Klitschko and Oleg Tchernybok, the nationalist leader, have very much at least tried to take the lead in these demonstrations. They are all the time on the stage on Independence Square, the Maidan. How do you feel about the way that they're handling it?
I think it's, it's a big mistake to think that someone is leading this Maidan. And I think that Yatsenyuk and Klitschko, or whatever, who will be next president of Ukraine, they will be afraid of Maidan. It's very bad that people outside Ukraine think that this is the leaders of Maidan. They are not leaders of Maidan. They are leaders for their politician parties. But Maidan is something very independent from politician life.
But when you speak to Ukrainians who aren't protesting on Independence Square, the Maidan, who are watching it on TV, the people they see on TV are these political leaders all the time, and they say, I'm not going to go out and protest for them. Do you sometimes think that Ukrainian civil society has made a mistake by allowing the political leaders to put themselves on show so much with this?
No, I think, the thing is that if we will have the same mistakes and wrong things we had in 2004. We will have another Yanukovych in 7 years or in 5 years. Now it's very important to have new contract between civil society and politicians. And that's what is going on the Maidan.
So you think that the next crop of politicians to be elected, even if they were corrupt and didn't do much in the past, this time they'll be under more pressure from the people and therefore will be more effective?
Yes, first. And the second is that, this is people, now the opposition and now new generation, not all of them, but Yatsenyuk is not generation of Tymoshenko or Yanukovych. Klitschko is not the same generation. Even Tyagnybok, he's not from that generation.
And what's been your role exactly? In the early days, you were playing some kind of role in organizing and deciding when and where to demonstrate and so on. But since then, what have you been doing?
I was responsible for this post and for those people, but not more. After 26th of November, when I went to Vilnius, I stopped.
There was the Vilnius summit, which was where Viktor Yanukovych was supposed to sign this deal with the European Union, but didn't.
And so after that, I'm not member of any coordination councils, of any agencies, or any bodies of these protests. I'm journalist. But these 5 days in my life, I will remember, I think, till my end, because in one day you are doing something that you have never do before. For example, we were just feeding people or gathering volunteers or guarding the square. I'm a journalist. I'm not a politician. I can't do that. But I was not alone. There was a lot of activists, and I'm happy that these people was a big hope for this Maidan, and they did a lot of things.
Tell me about Hromadske TV. Why have you and so many other prominent young Ukrainian journalists decided to set up this new online channel?
All journalists who are working here, they worked before on the media, which belonged to oligarchs, all politicians, and we know what is censorship. We know what is pressure of owners. You know what is to be not frank on life. And when appeared this initiative, we feel that first time in our life we can do something that will not make us to think our owner or our editor. We are just doing what we think, and we believe each other.
I also want to ask about you personally. You've been in Ukraine for as long as Ukraine's been independent, right, since 1991, but you were born in Kabul. How is it in Ukraine to be an Afghan Ukrainian who's in the public eye? Does everybody treat you as a Ukrainian just like any other, or not?
I'm remembering about that I'm not Ukrainian only in conversation with someone, because deep inside I don't feel that I'm not from Ukraine. It's because I brought up here by my parents. My parents are really from Afghanistan, but I don't think that someone can say that I'm not Ukrainian.
And in that context, how do you feel about the fact that Svoboda, the nationalist party, which is allied with xenophobic parties in Europe and has an anti-immigration platform, is playing such a prominent role in these protests?
Yes, it's true. And I think it's the biggest problem of Ukrainian opposition. First of all, it looks, there is something not normal in that, where you're saying about your opinion, values, and at the same time you're beating gays or making this neo-Nazist actions. So it's very strange for me. From the other side, I think it's a very good experience for Ukrainian society to see what is going on and to understand these people. You know that the poll ratings now is twice less than 2 years ago. Because people who voted for Svoboda, they thought that when Svoboda will enter to the parliament, they will have another face. They will be more civilized. But this is street party, and this is, it's not European way, I think. But anyway, you see that this opposition, they're tolerant for this, and I think it's this illness that we will have solved in some time.
It's going to be a problem for the opposition to...
Yeah, the treatment is only one, freedom of speech, and saying about these people, showing them what are they and how they feel and how they think.
Moving on, do you think that the government has a strategy against the movement? Is the government worried about this movement? I mean, we've seen these mysterious beatings, particularly of your colleague Tatiana Chornovil, Do you think that the government's behind that, as she says?
We can't prove that Tatiana Chernovol was beaten by militia or by someone of them. But what we can prove is that we don't have reaction of government on these occasions. So after beating of Tatiana Chernovol, after beating of thousands of other people and hundreds of journalists, the responsibility of not punishing is on the government, not on the society, not on those who are beating. It's government's problem. And this is face of presidency of Viktor Yanukovych.
So what's your prognosis for the next few weeks and months? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that we'll have a very bad year because for Yanukovych it's very obvious that West will be on the side of opposition leader in the next election. The second thing is that he has money from Russia. And the third thing is that he knows from poll ratings that he has no chance to win in 2015.
If it's free and fair.
Yeah. And all these three factors means that Yanukovych will act very straight and very hard against opposition. And I think we even don't imagine how straight and how hard he will do. So I think it will be a very bad year. But at the end of this, I believe this Maidan can solve this problem and solve this conflict between government and power. The thing is that many people compare Ukraine 2004 and 2015. It's two different countries because Kuchma, he has allowed him to lose. But Yanukovych, he has no chance to lose. He has no this option at all. That's it.
So 2014 could be a tough year, but also a very interesting year for Ukraine. We'll be following things closely here on France 24. But that's the end of this interview. Thanks very much to my guest, Mustafa Nayyem.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more news.